Episode 6.
Welcome to the Live Fit podcast with your host, Glenn Johnson. Today you will learn techniques for permanent weight loss and improved overall health.
Thank you for tuning into episode 6 of the Live Fit podcast. This is part 2 and the conclusion of my interview with Alec Sturry. If you remember, he is the hydrocolon therapist for Chakra 17 West. I interviewed him in the last episode, and it went too long to try to squeeze into one, so I'm bringing it out for a second edition, and this will be the conclusion. I still have a lot of questions I wanted him to answer, so you get to hear those. And then at the end, he performs a colonic on me. No, it was not recorded, so you're not going to hear any of the weird sounds that you might hear of water flowing, but I did come back on the mic afterwards and gave you my immediate impression of what it was like and how I felt. So you can stand by for that at the end of the show. But first, I'd like to give a shout out to all the people that have given me 5-star reviews on iTunes. I really appreciate it. The most recent one I received was given by somebody named Stink Tank. Thanks for the 5 stars. And what he said was, great delivery and very engaging host. But besides that, Glenn provides info and advice that I'll actually be able to use without getting into my own health details, pretty average 50-year-old male stuff. Almost everything Glenn talks about maps directly to what I can and should do. And even better, these aren't things that I have to change my whole life to do. Great guest, too. The last one with Alec, the colonic guy, was totally interesting and out there. Completely shatters any preconceptions about colonics. Can't wait for part 2 of that. Well, Stink Tank, you don't have to wait any longer. I would appreciate any reviews you would give me. If you listen to the show, please get on iTunes and leave a 5-star review or other. Be honest. I want you to be honest. Don't just give me 5-star because I'm asking for it. But these reviews really do help in my position on iTunes. So the more reviews I get and the more 5-star reviews I get, the better placement I have. So new people can find my show more easily and they too can learn to live fit. I would also like to ask if there is anything you'd like me to do a show about, any topics that interest you, that you want to hear a little bit more about, that are maybe confusing to you or interesting to you, or you just think would be good for other people to know. Please let me know. Send me some feedback. You can log into livefitonline.net and fill out the contact form, or go to contact us, and that will shoot an email on over to me. Without a further ado, I'd like to jump right into the remaining questions I had with Alec Sturry, and then I'll come back at the end and give you my impression of the colonic. So, Alec, I have a few more questions, and first of all, I want to just kind of make a little aside that I found it a little bit funny that the directions you gave me to get into your office, or I have to walk around the back of the house and downstairs into a little basement door. I thought that was kind of appropriate.
Yeah, it is kind of perfectly appropriate.
And you told me earlier that you're not opposed to poop humor or colon humor. Do you laugh at fart jokes or?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, we take things so seriously in this culture. I mean, the amount of levity we can experience in our life, is so profound, and I love that. I love that part of life. I'm completely open to humor around my work because, first of all, I think we take pooping way too seriously in this culture, in the wrong way.
Right.
We take it seriously in that we don't want to hear about it, we don't want to think about it, we don't want to talk about it. We want it to be partitioned off from every other aspect of our life. But it's an integral part of being a human. We all do it, no matter what. It's one of the things that being a human that we all do, no matter what.
Everybody poops.
Everybody poops, right? There's that book, right?
Yeah.
It's fantastic. And then, I find it humorous because, first of all, the jokes are funny. And secondly, again, I think that if this were more in the open, if it was something that we could just joke about and talk about more freely, we'd be so much better off for this. I remember as a child, I was terrified to poop in public or to have to have anything to do with my poop because it was such a forbidden topic. And my parents were relatively open, but culturally, it's a definitely taboo subject. It's not something we talk about at the dinner table. Maybe we do in my family, but not normally, not in most people's families. And I mean, again, it's so critical to our health. I mean, most people don't understand that because they've never talked about it. They don't understand that pooping is one of the most essential things that we need to do at least on a daily basis, if not several times a day.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's crazy. 80% of all the physical waste that needs to come out of our body on a daily basis comes through our colon.
Wow.
So if things are not working properly, the backlog develops very quickly, and everything drains to the colon.
Yeah.
Every organ in the body is critically dependent on the healthy functioning of the colon for its own functioning to work properly.
And so it is really important, and people will talk about all sorts of other things, and even things that you might think would be embarrassing. And what I find interesting is that the difference between women and men acknowledging their body functions are completely opposite. As far as, for example, I was at a party over the weekend, and I heard, whoa, man, somebody broke bread in there. That stinks. Who did it? And so this guy's walking around asking all the guys who did it, and all of them said no, and none of the women said anything. And so I came to the conclusion that, well, it must have been a woman who done it because any of the guys would have admitted it, and all the women are just looking sheepish and scared. Right. And yet, a friend of mine who was a male at the same party, I told him that I was coming here to talk to you and to have a colonic today, and he just shut down the conversation immediately. And I thought he definitely would have been interested in it, and he wasn't. And so that just kind of reminded me of the difference in acceptance that men and women have of things being done to their body. Women go to the gynecologist and they're used to being probed and poked, and their pap smears and all these other things from a pretty young age, but men aren't. And I think there's a lot of homophobic deep-seated emotions that go along with anything having to do with the rectum.
I think you're absolutely correct about that.
So how many of your patients, do you call them patients?
I call them clients.
How many of your clients are men? I mean, percentage-wise.
I would say roughly probably a third of my clients are men. So 2/3 are women. It used to be more than that, more women even than that.
Wow.
It used to be probably 3/4 of my clients were women and 1/4 were men. What I'm seeing as the culture evolves in America is that I have a lot more men becoming interested in this process. We live in Portland, so it's a very different culture than the greater culture in America.
Right.
But even here, there's such a tendency for men to avoid this process. Who knows, for many reasons, but one of them I think is this kind of homophobic idea that if someone sticks something in my butt, it makes me automatically gay. Maybe that's not going to be on their conscious mind, but I know that is a reason why a lot of men avoid this process.
Yeah.
Or they feel like it's just like too weird and gross for them to even fathom. But women, I think, in general, are more in tune with their bodies than men are in this culture. I think a lot of men kind of live primarily in their heads and not necessarily actually in their body in terms of really understanding what's going on in their body. Women are kind of in that monthly cyclical rhythm where they're kind of drawn into their body no matter what they want. So they tend to be more focused on their body. Also, I guess in our culture too, women have to be more focused on their body because, it's very important.
Right.
That they look healthy and, feel healthy. Men, it's a lot easier for men to get away with a beer belly in this culture. Which is unfortunate, but it's just where we're at,
Right.
And most of my clients are women, or predominantly women.
So I have a couple more questions before you give an overview of the procedure that you're about to do to me. I've heard a lot of talk about probiotics lately.
Right.
So what do they live in the colon, or are they up in the small intestines?
The entire digestive tract is filled with bacteria. Okay.
And so if you take probiotics, is that beneficial, and how is that different than eating yogurt every day or so?
Right. Well, probiotics, I would say, can be very beneficial. It depends on the person and on kind of how their body functions. What we see is that certain probiotics work really well for some people, and then don't work at all for other people. So like people who have very severe milk-based allergies, or allergies to things like wheat or soy, if those probiotics are cultured in those substances, or if they contain those substances at all, they can actually cause more harm than good in those particular people, because their bodies are so sensitive that even something that's just that was grown in milk can actually have a really adverse reaction to the body. In fact, one of my clients yesterday was saying the probiotics she has been using for years, she just found out that they're cultured in milk, and she can never understand why whenever she takes them she gets really uncomfortable. Like if that had been me in that situation, I would have immediately stopped taking them. But so often we hear something's good for us, and so we do it regardless of how our body responds. So like what I've found in my life is that there's a certain type of probiotic that I love that works really great for my body, whereas the first 10 I tried before that, I didn't really seem to notice much of a difference. So they can be really effective. After a colonic especially, it can be very effective to take probiotics, because when we do a colonic, again, when we are removing the sources of possible microbes that are not happy and healthy for our body, and we can help to engender and cultivate kind of a more profoundly beneficial environment for our body by taking probiotics, because we're going to kind of quickly cultivate the intestinal tract.
So I should take some probiotics after this?
Again, it's not necessary, because the colonic's not going to remove all the bacteria from your body. Just like if we were to take a shower, if you were to look at your skin afterwards, your skin would be covered with microbes. Unless you use some kind of antimicrobial soap. Like there's no way you're going to get them off your body. They're just there. So like when we do a colonic, because the colon's left in a much more open and receptive state to the proliferation and growth of probiotic bacteria, at least from our understanding, they're going to very quickly move in that direction, especially if they have your assistance in terms of eating food that provides them the right type of environment, the right nutrients that they need to colonize the intestinal tract. So like I just read yesterday, Scientific American published this little article saying that what scientists are finding now about the digestive tract is that sometimes within as few as 3 to 4 hours after eating something, the bacteria that are responsive and are drawn to a particular food will actually begin to show up in the digestive tract. So like if we eat, say like lots of vegetables, bacteria that are more drawn to that type of environment show up within just a few hours or a few days of eating. So like within a few days we can actually change the culture and the ecosystem of the colon.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So like when we get a colonic, again, we're leaving the body in a very receptive state to kind of go in any direction. If we go from a colonic to eating donuts and,
Yeah, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, sugary sodas, etc., we're going to be basically asking for the organisms we don't necessarily want in giant quantities in our body in. So probiotics can be helpful in the sense that they can speed up that process, but again, they don't necessarily. Our bodies are very individualized. One thing doesn't fit every person. So
right.
It's hard to say like whether or not probiotics are going to absolutely benefit you. I mean,
okay,
they can benefit you.
You said you've tried 10 before the one that you're currently taking, and you didn't notice any effect. And I've tried a few different probiotics and didn't notice a thing. And I'm in pretty good touch with my body, so I think I would have noticed something if I could notice something. But maybe I was taking the wrong kind, or maybe I don't need it.
Right.
And so like with vitamins, if you're not deficient of a vitamin, taking it's not going to elicit any sort of response. So I'll just kind of leave it at that and guess that for my future. But I have one more question, and that is pertaining to alcohol.
Right.
Now, let's see. I've had a sort of a theory that you can make alcohol in your intestines, because one time I drank a bunch of grape juice, like close to probably half a gallon, literally, of grape juice in a short period of time. And after, I don't know, an hour maybe or so, I felt drunk.
Right.
And then I felt hungover.
Well, to answer that question, I would say that, again, anything we put into the body is going to elicit a certain type of response from the microorganisms that live in the body. So, if we are to say, eat a lot of sugar, like we talked about before,
Right.
we tend to draw things like candida into that environment. When they are digesting sugars, they do so through the process of fermentation, which always as a byproduct produces alcohol. So one thing I've heard, this was from a naturopath that I work with, she told me that she had read this study recently where they had tested people's blood alcohol levels, and they found that there were people that had people who had candida overgrowth in their intestines were actually producing alcohol to the point where it was showing up in their bloodstream, and they were actually literally subtly drunk.
Wow.
So like, you've heard the expression for like, you know, I've eaten so much food I feel drunk, or like people say something like that.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, you know, I feel so like wasted, I ate such a big meal. One of the symptoms of candida overgrowth in the body is quote unquote brain fog, you know, whatever that would mean. When we have chronic alcohol being absorbed into our bloodstream, you know, you have to imagine that could probably create a sensation like brain fog. So there are microorganisms through the process of the fermentation of sugars in the body that can create alcohol to the point where it can show up noticeably in our bloodstream. You know, the more infested you are with candida overgrowth, obviously the easier it would be to have that be a reality for you, especially if you're eating foods that, again, are giving them kind of the fuel they need to produce that, to do what they do.
Okay. I would like to know the procedure that I'm about to undergo.
Sure.
Well, I guess just give me a summary of what's about to happen.
Well, honestly, it's a very simple procedure. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to go into the room next door and attempt to use the bathroom first. Then you're going to keep your top on, take everything off from the waist down. You're going to climb on a really comfortable table facing the wall on your left-hand side, laying down. You're on top of 2 sterile, hygienic pads that have the ability to absorb a little bit of liquid in case there is any kind of spillage that occurs, which is rare, but, you know, just in case.
Okay.
And then basically what you're going to do is you're going to just lay there and relax. I'm going to come into the room. We are going to set a little intention for the treatment. And then basically we are going to put the speculum in your bottom. It goes in about 1.5 inches. It's about it has a 1/2 inch diameter opening, so it's a very small device. There's a hilt on the end of it so it can't slide like deeper into the intestines. One of the things that sometimes is tossed around in terms of the danger of colonics is that we can perforate the intestine, because in the past people did used to use these incredibly long speculums, basically.
Right.
Which, you know, we want to avoid damaging the intestines. That's our highest priority. So
Right.
this goes in very, very, very short. It doesn't hardly enter into the intestine at all. It really actually is just held kind of by the rectal muscles. And then what we're going to do is we have a tank of water filled with warm filtered water. It's held up, suspended up above you. So with this particular kind of colonic, we are only employing gravity's assistance to draw water into your body. There's no machinery involved at all, which in our opinion makes this particular kind of colonic extremely gentle and as thorough as possible. The amount of water pressure that we're going to use today is basically equivalent to if you were to take a water pitcher and just pour it over your arm. That's how much water pressure.
From how high up?
2 feet.
Okay.
So very, very minimal water pressure. It's literally like, you know, it's just very gentle. So because of that, the water is going to enter up into your colon. your body will be more receptive to it because we're not shooting water up into your body. It's not like a sudden jolt. And it's more just like it's trickling in.
And it's not icy cold.
It's not icy cold. Body temperature, very important. We want it to feel as comfortable as possible. As the water is drawn up into your intestines, anything that wants to come out is going to slowly start to move out of your body. One of the amazing things about this particular kind of colonic is that we actually have two streams of water, one entering into your colon and one exiting your colon at the same time through the same device.
That was my next question.
So the speculum is, although it's extremely untechnologically advanced, it is amazing in that it allows for water to flow into and out of your body all at the same time. The wastewater is channeled downstream through a tube to the sewer system directly. There's no
backwash.
It doesn't stay anywhere. There's no backwash. Drains down immediately. And likewise, we can't get waste up into the clean water system ever. It's impossible because of gravity. We avoid that completely. So as that water travels up in your intestines, anything that it needs to come out is going to come out. It works by softening up the hard and impactful fecal material in the body. We are going to slowly allow the muscles of the colon to kind of uncontract around the waist because of water. As it moves in there, it's like, if you imagine like a crinkled up balloon, as we fill it up with water, it's going to slowly open up the intestines. But because the intestines are very, very strong and at the same time malleable, they're only going to open as far as they basically want to. That's another thing that's very particular to this particular kind of colonic, is that we are always working in conjunction with the body. We're never going to push the body beyond what it's comfortable doing. The body will act in accordance with what it wants to do.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm with you the whole time. I'll be walking you through the experience.
You'll hold my hand?
I'll hold your hand if you do that.
All right.
Probably won't, though. It's not that bad.
Do I get a hug afterwards?
Sure.
Okay. Well, I'm going to come back and do some more recording on this afterwards, so my listeners can get firsthand immediate reaction from me, and perhaps I'll think of some more questions while we're in there. So maybe only a few minutes, but we'll see you in a little bit. Well, I just finished up with my colonic, actually about an hour ago. I didn't stick around because Alec had another client he had to get with, and I didn't really have any more questions at the time. I was asking him questions while he was doing it. But I did want to get in here as soon as I could to give you sort of my overall view of the experience. It was an interesting experience. Like I said before, I think women are more accustomed to having their bodies worked on than men are, and I'm no exception, though I've had massages and things like that before, but this was certainly a new experience for me. Now, I first want to say that it wasn't an entirely pleasant experience. It was very odd, and there was a certain amount of discomfort to it. Never quite painful. There was some feeling of like cramps, like when you have to go to the bathroom, you have kind of some movement and you feel some feeling around, and what that is the peristaltic movement of the colon working loose and moving around. It was a good exercise for my innards. And so I want to second what I said, though it wasn't terribly pleasant and there was a certain amount of discomfort, it wasn't a horrible experience either. And since it was just my first time, I didn't really know what to expect, and any subsequent visits would probably be much easier and much, kind of a no big deal. We just chatted most of the time. We were talking about our kids, but he did tell me that he got a lot of stuff out of me, and there was one area that was kind of blocked, and when it let loose, I could definitely feel it. I could feel it traveling all along from my upper large intestines all the way up and around on out, and it was really, really noticeable. So how do I feel afterwards? Kind of strange. I can't quite put a finger on how I actually feel. Part of it is probably just starvation, because he did recommend to do a cleanse for 2 days before, and even better yet, a fast on the day of. Now, I didn't quite fast. I ate lots of fruits and vegetables and tea. I had lots and lots of tea and water. And so I didn't go into it starving, but I really haven't eaten much since then either. I had an apple and a banana since then. I'm waiting for dinner here. And then I'm going to eat, and that's going to be really good. But maybe I'll feel a little bit more normal after that. So I can't say I feel bad. I certainly don't feel bad. It's not an unpleasant sensation I feel now. It's just kind of a little bit different, but I could certainly go about my day, go back to work or whatever it intended if that's what I needed to do. But mostly I'm just hungry. So I wanted to get that down right away while it's still fresh in my mind. Would I do it again? Probably I would if I had a reason to. And just the amount of junk that he got out of me, I would say there's a reason to, because I eat a lot of fiber. I eat really healthy foods, fruits and vegetables, whole grains, and he still got a bunch of stuff that was impacted in there. Now, one thing he did say was that I have pain in the front of my hip quite often, and he said the colon runs right up next to the psoas muscle, and they're so closely related that could cause the pain. So, and I don't have that pain right now, so we'll see. After I sit a while, we'll see if we still have that pain in the psoas. Well, that wraps up episode 6 and my colonic experiment. I'd like to answer the question from last week's question of the week. And the question was, do you need to eat anything special before the colonic? And Alec told me for between the 48 and 24 hours prior to the colonic, I should eat just fruits and vegetables, really simplified stuff. So really basically stay away from animal products. The last 24 hours, he recommended a liquid fast. He said it's not necessary, you don't absolutely have to, but it does make everything a lot easier. So I did follow that pretty closely, not 100%, but pretty closely, and as far as I know, everything was great. So my question for you for this week is, how soon after a vigorous workout should you eat? Whether that's a run, a bike ride, or a weight training, how soon after a vigorous workout should you eat? You can leave your answers in the comments on the show notes, or you can email me or leave them on Facebook, and I will answer this question next time. Until then, take care and live fit.